What's going on, everyone? Nick Corona here, and I'm at the Consolidated gold mine in Dahlonega, Georgia with my lovely wife Paulina. And today is my birthday, the big 3-0, and I feel great, and I've always wanted to come to this gold mine, especially since we started checking out gold mines in Arizona, real gold mines, like abandoned ones. I haven't posted any of those videos yet, but they're definitely coming. So anyways, it's like $18 a person, and you get to first of all find gold. So we already got to pan, and I already got gold. I got two little specks, and she got 4 little specks, and it's probably gonna go straight into the 401k, straight to retirement, no big deal. But we're just waiting for our tour to start right now. So behind us is people gemstone hunting and panning for gold over here, and our tour is gonna start any minute. And we're gonna get to go 400 feet underground in this well-preserved gold mine. It's gonna be so cool. And yeah, where the gold at? We got the gold. So yeah, stick around and find a lot of gold with us.
Stand while you're above the water. Now after about 5 or 6 shakes, shaking 2 down at a time, you want to stop shaking. Maybe close hands, gently take that roll pin and push it straight down in the water and straight back out.
That's good you're doing
No, it's some shit. Thank you. See the master at work.
Oh, yeah?
So we're going to shake it good to be sure that's settled to the bottom. A little extra out, make it easier to find. And at this point, it's a good spot to check. Everything is layered by weight. So we're going to swirl this around.
Yeah, Greg.
There's your heavier garnets. There's your gold beginning to show up on the bottom. The very heaviest thing in the pan. You got a couple of pieces there.
Oh, awesome. What are those ones? Something else?
That's little pieces of garnet.
Okay.
Pieces of garnet.
2 little flakes of gold. It's a start.
So success.
Awesome. Do they not all have gold in them?
Well,
They usually
most
do.
of them have gold, but I have no idea how much is in them.
You're good, but not that good.
Where's this all? Where's it from? The sand.
This comes out of the river south of town, the Chestatee River. It's dredged out of the river, and the dredging process removes the big rocks and sticks and twigs and things. And then you're left with a flow sand in the gold. It makes it a little easier to get that gold out. You can leave it at the register there. Got your tool. Show you a little video to give you some background information. As soon as this wraps up, we'll have our underground adventure. The hard hats are recommended if you want to grab a hard hat.
Required?
It's not required, but it is certainly recommended, especially if you're over, say, 5'9". Now, we're going to be going in the back door of the mine. This entrance was blasted for the sake of our tours, but you know, here in the South, we always say that visitors that come to your back door are your most welcome guests. So, welcome to the mine, y'all. Feel free to take photos if you like, and if you have any questions while we're down there, feel free to ask. I'll try to answer them for you. And it looks like everybody's about geared up. So if y'all will hold on to the handrails and follow me, we'll go underground.
Cool, okay, great. Oh, Greg, look at this room.
Don't fall in.
All right, now, folks, if you'll direct your attention to this big opening that's in front of you, this is what gold miners call a glory hole. This is the spot where they discovered that 22-foot wide gold-bearing vein. So just imagine the way this looked to our miners way back in November of 1898. That's when the company started work here. And at that time, this whole area was filled with white quartz rock placed with pure gold. As a matter of fact, if you look way in the back, you'll see an opening. Looks like the entrance of a cave down there. That's the spot where they dug out 54 pounds, 9 ounces of gold. Well, the old-time miners have removed all of this ore except up high. If you look up high, you'll see a rock that runs from wall to wall. Now, that still assays out at over 3 ounces of gold per ton. It's very rich in gold. But we got to leave it up there because that's what holds up the wall right here. But this is the side of that big bonanza vein. I'm going to take you down next and show you a gold vein that remains in the wall. So hold on to the handrails and we'll go deeper.
Watch your head.
All right, folks, if you'll look over on this side, you see that band of white rock? That is white quartz rock, and that is a gold-bearing vein. As a matter of fact, if y'all look right in that corner, you might see the glitter of a little bit of gold right there. Now, this white rock is what they call free milling. In other words, if you take that rock, crush it to powder, it's pretty easy to get the gold out. But you'll notice some of that looks kind of rusty. So that's coated with iron and sulfur compounds. You call that sulfide ore. And the deeper you go in this mine, the more the ore looks like that. That requires an elaborate milling process. So in 1899, they built the largest gold processing mill east of the Mississippi River right here to process that ore. And doing that was quite an undertaking. They had to get 75 railroad car loads of heavy machinery here to equip the mill. And if you think Dahlonega is a dinky little mountain town today, picture the way this place looked in 1899. There wasn't a paved road for miles, so they had to haul all that heavy machinery here on wagons pulled by mules over that steep, muddy mountain roads. But when they finally got everything here and got the mill built, they take this ore in the back, crush it to a powder, then it went through a roasting furnace, then a process called chlorination. 36 hours after the ore went in the back door, the gold bars came out the other side, and all the gold was sent to the U.S. Mint in Philadelphia to be struck into gold coins. Well, I'm going to take you down and show you how the old-timers harvested this ore. But before I do, there is one other important feature I want to point out to y'all, and that's this rock right here. Here at the Consolidated mine, we call this the wishing rock. And we call it that because if you hit your head right here, you'll wish you hadn't. So be sure you duck when you pass under here, and we'll go deeper. Watch out for that wishing rock. y'all noticed the dampness on the ramp coming down, and of course our little waterfall here. All of that is natural seepage running into the mine. The rain that falls on the surface over time finds its way down here into the mine. This little waterfall runs 365 days a year, rain or shine. Even during the severe drought we had last summer, never quit running. As a matter of fact, if the main entrance of the mine was not open to drain all this excess water away, we would be underwater on this level. Now the Consolidated mine is a hard rock mine. Everything we go through on this tour was drilled and blasted by the old time miners. None of this is a natural cave. And the way the guys started work down here is with simple hand tools like this. This is a hand drill steel. And in order to make a hole in the rock, you put this up against a stone and simply hit it and twist it. Now you call this single jack drilling. It's really a slow way to drill through solid rock. It's a little faster if two folks do it. I've got a volunteer that'd like to help drill. Sure. All right, just stand right there, please, sir. What's your name? Yeah, that's right. You're a quick study. All right, your name, you are called the shaker, and that's your job. Is after I hit it, you give it a little twist, okay? Yep. And don't worry, I usually don't miss.
Only one, sure.
Yeah. You ready?
Yep.
You sure?
I'm ready.
Here we go. Very good. All right. Now for this, of course, I would be swinging a big 9-pound sledge instead of this 3-pound hammer. You got to give it a twist every time I hit it. There we go. Now, doing this in 1900, we would work a 10-hour day. About every 20 minutes, you and I would rotate positions. At the end of the 10-hour day, you and I each earned $1. $1 a day is all they paid. But now your job is critical because while we're drilling, rock dust builds up in that hole. If you don't have a good man as a shaker, it'll get stuck like this one. And when you get them stuck, you don't get them loose. That's been there 110 years. And the boss isn't real happy about you losing tools in the mine either, so he takes the price of that drill steel out of your salary. 90-cent drill steel. But you, sir, did a fine job, didn't get stuck. High five. You're now an official double jack driller. Be sure and add a line on your next job resume. Experienced double jack driller. That'll carry a lot of weight, I'm sure. Now, after you go about 6 inches deep, these are dull. They have to go out to the blacksmith shop. So you have to bring a whole armload of drill steel. You're always swapping off to a longer, sharper steel. The blacksmith was one of the busiest men at the mine. He had to stay busy all day long sharpening drill steel. And when you're finished, we're going to have a series of nice round holes. We'll talk about loading them a little further down the line. Anybody got a question for me, Will?
What if they hit your hand?
You had a bad day. There's in the newspaper the story of a fella who got hit in one hand, so he started holding with the other hand. They hit it, and when he left the doctor's office, he had to hold a prescription in his mouth when he went to the drugstore. That's a pretty bad day.
And 20 minutes later, you get even.
That's about right.
And there was no workers' comp, it was $3,000.
That's right.
That's scary.
That's right. Take a look down there.
Wow. Still floating.
We've got an inclined shaft here called winds that goes down to another level. Every level below this one is filled with water today. The mine is actually over 700 feet deep at its deepest point. Now back in the old days, the company invested $5 million in this mine and the surrounding mining property. In today's money, that's equivalent to $168 million. They could afford the latest technology available. This was truly a high-tech mine for its time. They had electric lights down here. Most of the machinery ran off compressed air. And we've got a pretty good sized group here, folks from a number of locations. I'm sure y'all are aware there are gold mines scattered across the United States. But you're in a really unique position here because out of all the gold mines I know of, this is the only place where there's a gold mine on top of a gold mine. Because from this exact point, if you went 220 feet directly overhead, you come out at the checkout counter at the Garden Center at Walmart overhead. Bigger gold mine than this is today. So right now you are 20 stories directly under Walmart.
Wow.
Where would be underneath the bank?
Sir?
We'll do a little drilling on our own.
There you go.
Oh, we can work.
Is this,
There you go.
is all the property privately owned, or is it?
It is.
Is
It
it?
is. However, Walmart owns the mineral rights directly under it.
Really?
They bought the mineral rights
Smart.
directly under. So right here, we couldn't mine. The rest of the mine, we can't.
Do they still mine at all?
There is no commercial mining going on in this mine, and that's my story I'm sticking to.
It's almost 401k.
There might be a little exploratory work going on or something. There is no commercial mining.
Stuff all the time. When they were real
How many miles of tunnels are down here?
4.5 miles.
4.5?
That's what I'm told. I haven't been through all of them, but that's what I'm told.
little lines and stuff.
All right. Now sometimes the old miners had to follow a vein upward. You can see a little bit of a quartz vein here, but the bulk of that vein material they mined out over your head. And we call that a stope. S-T-O-P-E. That's where they excavated the gold ore. But when they were doing this, they were getting away from the hand drilling like we first demonstrated. And they were moving to a machine like this. This is the stope drill, the kind of drill that made the holes way up there. And of course, this works like a jackhammer, only you're drilling up instead of down. But now this thing's heavy, you don't want to have to hold it up over your head. It's got a telescoping leg down here that helps push this drill up against the ceiling when you plug the air hose in. But it doesn't take long before you blast enough rock down you can't reach the ceiling, even with that telescoping feature. So then you have to do something different. You got to make pockets in the side of the stope like that one. You wedge heavy boards across, making a platform. You prop up a ladder, haul up this heavy drill and its air hoses, and you stand on the little platform and drill and load your holes. When you blast that rock down, you got to make another set of pockets and another platform, and you keep leapfrogging your way upward until somewhere up there that vein pinches out and it's not worth mining. Now when they were doing all this work, it's important to remember there was very little in the way of safety regulations. They didn't even have basic gear like hard hats. They weren't invented yet. So when a miner was running this kind of drill, all the rock dust from the hole he was making fell back down on the guy running the drill. And back then, he didn't have a respirator to protect his lungs. If you ran one of those very long, you were going to inhale a lot of rock dust. That razor sharp silica dust permanently damages your lungs, creates a condition we know today as silicosis. So many miners died young from running these, they nicknamed them widowmaker drills. Pretty grim. Anybody got a question? Hearing none, we'll go a little further, find something more cheerful to talk about.
That's the same kind of equipment that they use when they did Rushmore.
Yes,
That they're hanging off of ropes.
that's right. So we're just under the rock instead of hanging off of it. But it's very similar. Now, as we go along, folks, I'm going to give you a little minor vocabulary. In a tunnel like this, you actually don't call this the ceiling and the sides. In miner speak, this is the back, these are the ribs. So as you go through this next little section, watch your head, the back gets a little low. Watch your head. Just step down there and have a seat on those benches, please. Y'all will step down here and have a seat on these benches. I'm going to go make a sandwich. I'll be back. On a hot summer day, it feels so good down here. You wish the tour lasted half the day. But now in the old days, the miners were driving that main tunnel that we've been following, and they struck another vein right out here. Where you're seated now, we call this a drift. This is where they drifted along this direction, mining that gold ore out. The wall in front of you here, you call the heading or the face. Now they typically would drill about 16 holes in the heading. When they got them all drilled out, the next step was to take a big old drilling spoon like this. You'd reach in these holes, break all that rock dust out and get all those holes nice and clean. Then it was time to load them. What did they put in the holes?
Dynamite?
Dynamite, of course. Matter of fact. Yeah, I still got a stick left. So take 5 or 6 sticks of dynamite like this, go in each hole. Place them in that hole, take a wooden powder pole, you tamp them in there good and tight. When you're done, you have 16 holes packed with dynamite. 16 fuses hanging out of the face. Now they would use a longer fuse than that. They'd use about a 6-foot fuse in each hole. But that gives you 3 minutes. So at the end of the workday, shift change, everybody's going home. 2 guys have to stay behind to light the fuses. Now the way you do that, you don't want to be standing here with 15 of these already burning, fumbling around with a box of matches trying to light that last match. Instead, you cut a little short piece of fuse like this. You would light this little short fuse. Once it's burning, you use this to light every fuse on that face in the order you want them to go off. And when this one in your hand burns down, you better be done. You got just enough time to walk to a place of safety and hear the sound of this going off. Boom, 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 boom. If everything goes off correctly, you're through for the day. You can go home. The next group of miners coming to work roll mine cars up here, and they start their work day shoveling up all that loose rock you just blasted down. Tons and tons of it. You call that mucking. You muck up the loose rock, roll it out to the mill, then they start drilling. Hopefully, they can fire around before they go home. So miner's day is mucking, drilling, blasting, come back tomorrow, do it all over again for another 10 hours. Now, if you recall, I said this was a high-tech mine. You know, they had electric lights in all the main tunnels. But in a drift like this, you're setting off dynamite at the end of every shift. You blow all the light bulbs out. So in these drifts, even as late as 1906, each miner was issued 3 candles. And for the next 10 hours, you were mucking and drilling and setting your charges by candlelight. So imagine what it was like to be down here for 10 hours at a shift, working by the flickering flame of a candle. And at the end of the shift, when you light your fuses and you're ready to head out of here, you can't run out of here with a candle, can you? What happens if you try to run out with a candle?
Blow out.
Exactly, and the last thing you want to do is be in the end of a long, dark drift with 16 fuses sputtering away right behind you, trying to grope your way out of here in the dark. But that's the way it was for the old-time miners. Anybody got a question before we move on?
They blew out 16. What kind of depth would they get on average?
If you were machine drilling, they advanced about 5 feet.
Okay.
If you were hand drilling, it's more like 2.5.
Just shearing off the face of it.
Yeah, but you're just taking off, you know, several tons in there.
Yeah.
But you're only, most of this drift was blasted in 5-foot increments.
How far away is safe?
Hold that thought. On the way out, I'm going to show you the safety room for this tunnel, okay, for this drift. So I'll show that to you on the way out.
Excellent. Excellent.
All right, let's go a little further. We got some cool stuff yet to see. Y'all check this out. This is part of that really nice vein system that they were tapping into. That is a beautiful quartz vein. We've actually pulled some nice specimens out of that. Beautiful vein system there.
Following a nine, right? Good girl. You're doing great.
Now this is a very special type of mine car called a tram car. This ran right on the track where you're standing. This had an electric motor on it. Worked like a trolley car. As a matter of fact, in this opening, there was a tall mast that stood up overhead, contacted an overhead electric wire that supplied power. Matter of fact, look right behind you, ma'am, hanging from the ceiling up there. You see that rusty thing? Thank you for doing the Vanna White for me. That's always helpful. That's the insulator that supported the electric wire. So picture this in your mind, running the length of this tunnel, in most places about head height for a grown-up, was a bare copper wire carrying 500 volts, which was right over the metal rail and right beside the running water there. Does that sound a little sketchy?
You don't get that once.
No. You can bet an inspector today would have a stroke if he saw that. Back then, the guys had to be real careful down here. Now we've got modern lighting today, but in the old days, this is the setup. Glass insulators, Edison style bulbs. The generators down here at the mine supplied enough electricity to meet all the needs of the mine, but also enough power to light the entire city of Dahlonega. Dahlonega got its power from this mine from 1900 until 1921, long after the mine itself closed. All right, any questions before we move on? Hearing none? Hey, buddy, let's go a little further.
You ready? Let's go.
Now, ordinarily, this time of year, we start seeing some bats down here at the mine, but I haven't seen but one so far this season. They're a little slow coming back in due to, I guess it's been unseasonably warm. The original entrance of the mine is actually down that way another 200 yards or so. We don't go any further on tour though, because there's also a 700-foot deep elevator shaft and some really loose rock that way. But if we were going out that way, out that main entrance, that's where the original mill building stood. Two giant 4-story buildings for the mill and chlorination plant. But there was also assay offices, blacksmith shop, roasting furnaces, a lot of infrastructure. We're cleaning those ruins up, and I hope at some point in the future we can extend the tour out there. Cool. Now, most of the work down here, driving these tunnels and drifts, was actually done with a setup like this. This is called a drifter drill. Mounted on a column like this, it took 2 guys to run each one. The guy up front was simply called the chuck tender. He changed out these drill steels when they got dull. The guy behind it was called the drill runner. He operated the throttle and depth control and water valves. Took both men to wrestle this heavy drill into position. It's pretty clumsy to maneuver. Now this is a really old drill, but we cleaned it up and it still runs. So I'm going to turn it on for you and let you hear what one sounds like. Now for our littlest miners here, this is going to be loud. So I don't know how sensitive they are to noise. If noise is bothering them, you might want to step right around the corner for just a second. But if you listen real carefully, when I cut it off, you're going to hear a nice rumbling echo that's pretty cool, okay? So if we're ready, on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. All right. All right. You did great.
I like it because it's full automatic.
Yeah.
Give me 5.
Now,
Yeah.
since this is so old, we're only running this at half the original air pressure. If this was running at full power and actually drilling in the rock, you can imagine this thing would be deafening.
Are they doing what, 180 PSI?
This about 85
Okay,
at full power.
okay.
80, 85, somewhere in there.
Half of what we play with.
Yeah. So this is You can imagine, you know, it'd be deafening, and in the old days, there were about 20 of these running all the time, day and night, not to mention all the guys mucking rock into mine cars, and outside the entrance, 120 staff crushing rock. An incredibly noisy place to work, and back then, no earmuffs and hearing protection.
I bet that's at least 200 pounds too. Yeah.
Pretty tough, pretty tough. Anybody got a question? I've been doing a lot of talking.
What's your favorite part of the process?
My favorite part of the process is blasting.
Blasting.
Blasting. I think every guy enjoys seeing something blow up. You know, it's just something about, I don't know what it is, it's just fun.
Yeah. Adrenaline from running from
How much, you were talking about how loud those are now, and they let that dynamite off, how much pressure and sound down
Well,
here?
it puts a big pressure wave through the
Does,
mouth.
okay.
blow your eardrums.
Yeah.
Have you seen the vertical shaft?
Sir?
Have you seen the vertical shaft?
Oh, yeah. As a matter of fact, we're actually in the process of excavating one of the elevator cages out of that shaft.
Oh,
We're gonna
really?
put it on display.
Because it's underwater, right?
It's not underwater, actually, they didn't let it go all the way to the bottom. It's pulled off of one of what they call a station right there where the shaft meets a drift. So we're in the process of trying to dig it out and get it up to the top, so.
That's cool.
So when they were looking for, you know, were there actually geological engineers in here to kind of
Oh, yeah.
track, or did they just
Yeah, they're-
go by where they saw it?
There were mine engineers who came through, and the problem that we had back then though was they decided that the Western mining technology was the way to go, so they brought a lot of guys in from out west. Now the guys no doubt knew a lot about Western geology, but they didn't know about the geology here.
Much harder here, right?
And they made some really serious errors, you know, like they sunk shafts that were actually further away from the vein at the bottom than they were at the top, which is, it needs to be the other way around.
Right.
Were there any women miners?
No, interestingly enough, now there are plenty of lady miners now, you know.
Yeah.
But back in the day, two things were considered very taboo in the mine. One of them was whistling in the mine, the other was ladies in the mine.
Whistling and women.
Especially a red-haired lady. Red-haired lady were supposed to be the ultimate worst bad luck.
Oh, wow.
And I asked an old miner about that one
Why are you
time.
looking at me?
Where did that come from? You know, there's lots of lady miners now. What prompted that? He said, well, you got to think about it. Back in the early 1900s, if a lady came to the mine, it was never with good news or to just say, hi, I brought you a sandwich. It was always, come home, Billy fell out of the apple tree and broke his arm. Come home, Uncle Bob had a stroke. You know, it was always bad news. And apparently from that, the superstition grew.
Why? No whistling.
Because miners, being superstitious, believed in little spirits, little gnome-like creatures called Tommyknockers. And they felt like whistling upset the Tommyknockers. Believe it or not. I guess you could sing till the cows came home and that'd be fine, but whistling, no way.
What year did they quit using parakeets?
I'm sorry?
What year did they quit using parakeets?
Well, they didn't use them here. They use them a lot in coal mines and in other locations. Here, we didn't have trouble with methane.
It didn't happen.
And on a mine like this, you're open on both ends, you get good airflow through here.
It doesn't matter.
In some places, we have tunnels that are more remote, and I'm sure they use forced air ventilation in them. But you got to remember, these drills, all the exhaust is pumping fresh air into the mine too.
That's true.
Now, what you have a problem with today is if you go to the other sections of the mine that had timbering in them, as those timbers decompose, they use oxygen.
Yeah.
So if you go in one of these remote tunnels that haven't been used for years that has timbers in it, you can have low oxygen levels. If you're going back there, you better have an oxygen meter or a flame safety lamp or something.
That's what we use down at the port. Yeah.
Do you have a question, ma'am?
I was just gonna ask if there was ever any like uranium found in this
If
cave.
they're uranium?
Yeah.
No. The only thing that was that they were after is strictly gold. All right. Got time for one more quick one, anybody?
With this being solid rock, did you have to worry about, when you set off your discharge, did you have to worry about cave-ins in other places in the mines?
Yes.
You did.
Now, the only reason we can tour this end is because this is so hard rock. Different story down that way. But even on this end, when you set off a charge of dynamite, when you go back into that drift, the first thing you do is a process called barring down. You take a bar and you tap the rocks. And if they ring, they're firmly attached, you're okay. If they kind of sound hollow or thud, that means they're loose. You got to prime down before you go further. So you do that every time after a blast. Okay. Well, let's go a little further.
Dun, dun, dun.
Want to get a picture with them?
I'm just gonna stand up there.
I'm sure some of you more observant people have noticed there's spots where there's orange paint. Anywhere you see orange paint, somewhere near that point, the boss has had an assay sample full. He's done a lot of assaying and a lot of diamond core drilling and so forth. He knows how much gold remains down here, what price gold would have to reach before we could reopen for commercial mining. Of course, he's not sharing that number with any of us, but he's got it figured out. There's still gold down here. One thing I want to point out to y'all, a lot of these artifacts date back from the Depression era thereabouts. There was a resurgence in mining activity down here during the Great Depression. A lot of guys made a living for their family in this area mining during the Depression years. But something kind of interesting I want to point out to you is this horseshoe-shaped gizmo. This is a track bending tool. All the rails for the ore cars came as a straight rail. In order to make a curve, you had to hook each leg over that track, then tighten that screw down on the opposite side to force a little bit of a bend in that track. So every time you see a curve like the ones in front of us, all of that was bent by hand with that tool. Took a lot of hard work and a lot of skill to maintain the proper gauge on your track. All right. Now watch your head here.
Well, look, that just stuck in it. Probably like not intentionally.
Good job, Ray. Get that loose.
All right, you ready to jump? Done. Nope, that's done. All right. You made it.
Now, you were asking how far you had to go to be safe. This is actually the safety room for that drift down there. If they had to blast in the middle of the day when the guys were still down here, they would evacuate everybody to the back of this little room, and they would stand there until they heard the traditional warning yell that let them know they were lighting the fuses. Does anybody know what the traditional warning yell in a mine is?
Fire in the hole.
Exactly, fire in the hole. Matter of fact, I have discovered through the years, a lot of people have a secret desire to yell fire in the hole while they're underground. So we can all yell fire in the hole together. Everybody can take it off their bucket list after today, okay? So if you'll all join me, ready? Here we go. Fire in the hole! Outstanding. When they heard that, the guys back here stick their fingers in their ears, close their eyes tight, open their mouth, wait on the blast. If they were blasting in that drift, a pressure wave sweeps through the mine. Flying rocks ricocheting off the walls, but they're pretty safe back here, unless they get a little overeager to go check on their work after the blast. If they hurry down there too soon, they inhale the fumes of that exploded dynamite, and that gives you the mother of all headaches. We call it a dynamite headache. Have any of y'all ever had a brain freeze from eating ice cream too fast?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. A dynamite headache is a lot like a brain freeze, only lasts 4 hours straight without letting up. Just excruciating. Now, you can understand why. They were shooting straight dynamite. The main ingredient in that is nitroglycerin. If you know anybody that takes a nitroglycerin tablet for a heart condition, you've probably heard them say, you get too much of that, you get a humdinger of a headache that lasts for hours. So something we don't think about today that they had to face all too regularly, dynamite headaches. All right. Any questions before we move on?
Did it just dissipate?
Over time it did.
Yeah.
And oddly enough, you kind of built up a resistance to that. You get used to it. But they tell me that if you built up a resistance during the week and you went home Sunday,
It's gone.
came back Monday, it was gone. You started back over just as sensitive as you were starting.
Now, did they use like blowers and stuff to move air out of those things?
I'm sure in some of the more remote tunnels they had centrifugal blowers
Yeah.
pumping in fresh air. But something like this that's open on both ends, probably not.
Yeah.
You know, back in the early 19th century, in 20th century, folks just weren't interested in their workers as much as they are.
Right.
All right, let's go a little further.
I see your head is moving back.
Now, were you in the mining business, sir? You would have been in good around. We've got about 4 other Marines working. Good many Marines here, so. All right, folks, in a drift like this or in a mine like this, they were blasting every day. So sooner or later, you're going to have a charge of dynamite that failed to detonate. Whenever that happened, they would evacuate everybody to the safety room and they would call the most highly paid man in the mine, the safety man, to show up and deal with it. He would show up with his tool. If you can see on the end, it kind of has an auger shape to it. He would have to go to the hole that held that unexploded dynamite, carefully insert this, slowly twist it in an effort to extract that compacted, unexploded dynamite. And if that didn't sound bad enough, consider this. The way they loaded the holes back then, the last stick of dynamite, it's the one with the fuse on it, but crimped on the end of that fuse is a little number 6 blasting cap. Extremely powerful, very sensitive, and the last thing you want to do is be scraping across that bad boy with a metal tool. That is a recipe for disaster. So our safety man had to be really good at his job, or really lucky, or else he got replaced really fast. And for that, he made $2 a day. $2 a day. Now you hear that today and you think, there's no way in heck anybody with half a mind would want to do a job like that for $2. But put it in perspective. Back in 1900, basic laborers in Dahlonega were only making 80 to 90 cents a day. So $2 a day, yeah, that's a pretty attractive salary. Apparently, they had no trouble hiring people for that job.
Everybody wants to eat.
Yeah, everybody wants to eat, that's right. If you only made 80 cents working on the surface or 78 cents a day farming, yeah, you give it a whirl. So that's the way it was. If you were a basic miner down here, you made $1 a day. If you ran one of the drills, you were skilled labor, you made $1.50. But to make the big bucks, you had to be the safety man, pull down $2 a day. Now we're going to try to find our way back to the surface. I want you to notice in places they're still dripping. And anywhere you see dripping, it's beginning to form little stalactites and stalagmites like you would see in a cave. The best examples are halfway up this staircase on the left-hand side. Check them out as we head out.
All right.
Look at these big ones. Can you do cocoa? I did. I don't see one up top, but that's cool. Oh, because it's just running down the rock. That's cool.
Folks, there's actually a really nice pastry in this building. Once again, we can't take it out, it's off the back of the situation. So we just have to look at it with it. All right, so we're going to ease on up.
Okay, I got one question for you about that.
Yes.
Because it's all solid rock, can they not brace it?
You could, but at the assay on that, bracing it up enough to take it out would probably, you wouldn't make enough to
Counterproductive.
bother with it.
Scream it, Craig. Good luck, Craig.
Lena! It's okay. We're just getting really far behind because we're having so much fun looking for gold. And I hope everyone who watched had a really good time and learned all about mining because that was so cool. And I highly recommend coming to the Consolidated gold mine. And it sounds like there's still some gold in here. Oh, there it is. That's where the gold at.
If not, I'll unlock it for you.
Thanks, that was great.
Thank you, hope you enjoyed it.
What was your name again?
I'm Greg.
Greg? Minor Greg, that was great.
Thanks for coming, guys.
Did you get Rick? Oh, yeah. Thanks for coming.
Yep.
Thank you so much. We've been
Waiting
meeting.
to do it for a long time. These are super good for neighbors. Yeah, if you have neighbors, get one of these. Get a rock tumbler for your favorite neighbor.
Look at this. Look at this. Is like a mattress.
That's cool. Creative.
Oh yeah, let's take a picture of here.
If it was just a little bit not raining, I really wanted that drone shot.
You are insurance?